recording now. Okay, so Compassville paper. Okay, if you look at specifically question 6, it is really about how can Singapore. So here, can you just, if you have the paper, can you just help me circle? When we talk about Singapore here, you can talk about individual. How can individuals promote? How can the community? So when we talk about community here, we are talking about schools. Okay, let's say schools lah, make it simple. And how can, for example, the government promote greater diversity? So first you need to understand what is the meaning of greater diversity. And what I respect Compassville people, but what I felt was really unfair was by the time you finish your extracts and by the time you do all these kind of things, right, it is a lot of things going, okay? So even if, let's say, for example, extracts can be very long, what is important for you to take note is at the end of the day is about promoting greater diversity. And another word for greater diversity is actually about how to make sure that things are inclusive, okay? Sweet, how are things, I'm just going to keep this for a while. Give me a minute. Need to I'm going to stop share for a while. Give me a minute. Because I do like WhatsApp at the background. Okay, sorry. Okay, coming back. Sorry. Okay, all right. Better now. Okay, so it's about inclusiveness, and I think it is not it's not hard, but at the same time it is not something which we think carefully. Okay, so let's take a look at the answer. Don't get overwhelmed by the answers. It's just a lot of examples. Okay, all right. So now one way, remember we talk about how sphere of influence, right? We talk about how the individual can play a part. We talk about how the community can play a part. We talk about how, for example, the government can play a part. So this is individual. And usually for individual, right, I teach you a trick. Always talk about mindset. Always talk about changing the mindset. Changing the mindset. Changing mindset or changing POV. What's POV? Point of view. Okay, so one way to promote greater diversity is to change the mindset. That means we don't see a sports that is being associated with one race or one race. Mostly is one. It doesn't matter what religion you are, right? But it's about the race. So for example, in Singapore, it's really about how football is always associated with the Malays, or how, for example, basketball or taekwondo is basically associated with people who are of the Chinese ethnicity. All right, so it's about changing that mindset. And once we change that mindset, we are able to create this inclusiveness. And let's be honest, who would actually need a lot of this? It is really the parents, because the parents are the ones who would actually encourage their child to pursue their sports aspiration, correct? So the idea here is change the mindset of the individual so that they're more accepting. So the key word here is also accepting. And when we are more accepting, we are then able to also look at this part. Okay, participate in sports regardless of race or culture. And that's the idea. That's the idea about making it, promoting it to be more inclusive. Because the question is about how do you ensure that there's greater diversity? Greater diversity is when we change the mindset. I also included this. This is another example actually. And this example is about promoting the sports through social media. The very fact that, you know, we have the different platforms of social media to actually encourage and people to get people to come forward and like, oh, okay, this sport is just not a Malay sport, Indian sport, or it's a Chinese sport. It is actually sports for all. Okay, so that is one of it. So not easy, but this is one example of answering it. The other example that I felt was much easier is if, let's say, you get this kind of really, I would say, thinking kind of SRQ questions, is really about, okay, another way to promote is through schools. How you actually make sure that, I like this word, I think this is a very good word for you to learn. Schools are probably the best playground for such interracial encounters to occur and for friendship to form. I think this is a very, even though it's a motherhood statement, right? But I felt that this is like, wow, it tells a marker that, okay, this particular candidate is able to see how school is also used as a political tool. And it is the best place where literally you can create all these bonds. Okay. And the example that was being used here was Edgefield Secondary School that offers taekwondo as part of their PE curriculum. And we all know that taekwondo is very much a sport that's associated with East Asian ethnicity. That means mostly the Chinese students or Chinese people that actually take up taekwondo. All right, at least 80% of them. Okay, so the whole idea is if a school is able to do this as part of their curriculum or their activity, then everyone, regardless of race or religion, is going to do taekwondo. And when you do taekwondo, then these sports will no longer be associated with certain cultural or racial groups, and you find it more accessible. I thought that this was a very good example. And based on this, if this was, I would have given it a 6 out of 7, 5 to 6. Okay, so it is a really good answer. You don't even have to do the other one. All right, so that is one example of Compassville. Okay, now Compassville also talk about extracts 2 and extracts 3. This is about diversity. Okay, now what if, let's say, your extract doesn't give you an example, unlike the 2020, which gives you a very specific example. So extracts 2, if you look very carefully, it's very generic. They tell you about, okay, Singapore recognizes the benefit of diversity, understanding and appreciating diverse culture. So here they give you the word culture. That's it. Okay, and that's it. So culture, then you have to define. Is it culture in terms of food? It is culture in terms of music? Is it culture in terms of clothes? So this Compassville paper is tough to me because the examples that they give is not very specific. And if they don't give very specific examples or very generic examples like this, wow, then you must make sure that you know the examples well. Okay, the other one is diversity is because you are able to get new knowledge, language skill, new ways of thinking. Again, so broad, right? Okay, so what were they really looking for? And then go back to the question, do you think that it is more important impact? So which one is the more important impact? Is it diversity leads to diverse culture? Is it diversity is good because it leads to new knowledge? So based on your textbooks and what we have been talking about, look at this one. So one of it is about in the area of music. So if I'm not mistaken, this was in your textbook. They talk about how these two Chinese teenagers played tabla, if I'm not mistaken, Indian musical instruments, and they created fusion music. There was a mix of East and West, right? So how does this lead to greater diversity? Because of this, it provided this appreciation of diverse culture. So why is this important? It is important because keywords, I'm highlighting the keywords here, appreciate the richness of different culture. And when you appreciate other people's culture, you're able to connect with others in an increasingly globalized world. So, and at the end of it, it creates this social cohesion. So whatever that I underline here is the one that is key and the one that is important. Okay. The other one is the exchange of skills and knowledge. And I think in your textbook, they wrote it as A star. They wrote it about how all these foreign scientists actually came to Singapore. And because we are so open, right? We are open to, okay, the key word here is exchange of skills and knowledge is really about open to manpower, having foreign manpower. FY is foreign. Okay, foreign manpower, and this foreign manpower add value. Okay, and how does this help? Because when we learn new knowledge, it can learn to benefit job opportunities, and of course, it's about ideas that is being developed. So diverse manpower, a diverse manpower is good because you are able to learn from other people. All right, our scientists will have the exposure. So the idea is about having enough exposure as well. Okay, all right. Now moving on. Okay, this is Clementi Town. Clementi Town is very easy, I felt, for this paper. It is about how can Singapore, so again, Singapore, we're talking about how can Singapore, so it can be individual, it can be government, it can be also community. And the idea is practice good personal hygiene. Okay, it's about COVID-19, so quite easy. So you can see, right, the extract one is so long, right? But actually, you just go back to the question. That is the question. Okay, so sometimes you can cheat a little bit in that 10 minutes of annotation is, oh, you roughly know, but always go back to the question, what they are asking you, right? So same thing. One of it is, if let's say I want to do a government perspective, I will look at it. Oops, I will look at it in terms of social media. Oops, sorry. Social media campaign. Okay, so why social media campaign? I think a lot of you tend to use that. Use of social media, use of social media, use of social media, but the link is not strong enough. So this is like a cheat code of paragraph for you to tell me why. So why do I use social media? Because of the massive outreach. The whole idea is outreach. Social media is able to reach so many people in such a short duration of time, meaning when daily commute, exposed to advertisement or whatever the message on social media, correct? And because this is about personal hygiene, the whole idea is precaution and maintain good personal hygiene. But that is not enough. So if I use social media, so what, right? I mean, I can use social media, but I will not practice good habits of personal hygiene, right? So when we do this, it spreads awareness. Okay, we understand the importance of the issue, and then you are able to combat the spread of COVID-19. So whatever the keywords that I highlighted is actually to highlight that this is how we use social media. Social media is about outreach. You are able to access a lot of people, and people, because of how we are so stuck with our gadgets right now, our handphones, we look at it in our daily lives, in our daily commute, and that is the best point, touch base, for you to come up with all this kind of campaigns, right? Because people no choice, right? And they just read. All right, so this is how we use social media, the way to write and to make sure that you get your more marks. Okay. The other one, of course, is about schools. It's about using it during CCE lessons, okay? And again, schools, education is key. We use this, or we promote good personal hygiene through CCE lessons, because the idea is about education. When you have education, it becomes a habit. This is a keyword, habit, okay? And when it becomes a habit, then you use some examples, then you're able to prevent the spread of COVID-19 or whatever it is. I can throw in any kind of question. It can be about diabetes, it can be about what else, about eating right, or those kind of things, you know. But the method, because we talk about CCE lessons, schools is about education, raise awareness become a habit then becomes something that you can prevent if it's a disease, or you can encourage young people. Okay, and if you encourage from young, it will get, so just add in a bit more, if you encourage from young, it gets translated to adulthood. Sorry about that. Okay, all right, now moving on. Okay, so this is extracts 2 and extracts 3. Okay, it is about okay, it's about the rules of government. Okay, now this is good. Okay, because this one, at least they tell you about the extracts. So they tell you about, citizens enjoy a variety of goods and services offered by the government. So straight away, as you're annotating, you think, oh, okay, what are the examples? The examples are education. The examples are transport. Okay, all these are goods and services. Now, this may cost you to stumble a little bit, because this talks about laws. What if you do not know a specific law? Okay, so you can talk about fake news law, very generic one, correct? You can talk about things to do with maybe racism, okay? Anti-racist laws, possible. Okay, so if let's say you cannot think of a very specific example, fluff a little bit, okay, write a little bit that you have knowledge about it. Let's take a look. So this is the one that is about goods and services, right? So I chose obviously transport because it's easiest to write. And the whole idea is, how does providing transport benefit Singaporeans? Okay, it is because of the word convenient. Okay, they are able to enjoy cost savings, and it is able to ensure that the quality of life of Singaporeans are good because they are able to afford. Okay, so it has to be about, the whole idea is government provide goods and services so that it's more convenient and it is affordable for the people. I think that is the key idea. And moving on, this is the one, right? Okay, so one example is, okay, so one example that I chose was about judiciary interpreting and applying the laws. It's very different. That means young offenders versus adult offenders. They are very, very different. Okay. Recalcitrant is people who repeats. Okay, but the link is, I want to the link because anything to do with laws or justice, right? It has to be about fair. Fairness must be there. Your keywords must be there. So that means the government needs to provide some sort of security for the people. That is why you have laws. And because of that, Singaporeans will feel assured. Safety, yeah? Okay, knowing that the government treats everyone fairly, looks into the rights and welfare of individuals. So this idea is very important, this linking part. Okay, you can quote any other examples, in fact, for specifically for things to do with law. Right, this one must refer to the textbook. If you cannot do, then don't do, because then do this well, at least to get the 6 marks, right? Okay, okay, this is the one that is important. Anderson. Okay, Anderson paper is very, very important because it tells you, or it does take a look a little bit about our 2020 paper just now. Okay, I think I went through some of your classes and we talk about this, you know, what important message will you share to with Singaporeans to encourage them to sign up for Skills Future? And I was telling my students as well, Skill Future can be something that, and I talked to you in class, right? Skill Future is actually economic impact because it brings out employment. And when you have employment, then definitely your standard of living gets better. Agree? Okay. However, Skills Future can also mean, if you look very carefully at the words there, silver years. Silver years means actually older generation. So it is not about employment. Skill Future work can also be about to learn something. It's about learning. The whole idea is about lifelong learning, correct? And the idea is that it will make the lives of Singaporeans more convenient. Okay, give examples where most of our, maybe your grandmother, your grandparents, they don't know how to use this kind of apps. So the idea is about leveraging on apps, give example apps, how to use smart handphone. So what is the message that you want to say? The message is, okay, I'm telling you that it is more convenient. I'll give you an example. Let's say GrabPay, let's say how to use smartphones. And through this, how do this older generation benefit? Safe environment. They are able to buy items, and at the end of the day, it's about, again, going back to the convenience aspect. So what I was telling you in class is about, you know, Skills Future as a skill for you to upgrade, to earn money, standard of living increase. But this example, I thought I'd give you another example where it's just for silver years. It is really about a skill, learn, upgrade, but it's from my own knowledge so that I don't get scammed or those kind of things. So this is another example. Okay. Now for Anderson paper, quite easy because they talked about globalization. All right. And they talk about, do you think that the role of technology versus transportation? So this is a very simple, I mean, if you get this for national exam, so good, so very good. Okay. And quite simple actually. Okay, technology. So technology, give examples, give specific examples if you can. Okay, but the whole idea, the whole idea about globalization, right? You must have the keywords. The keywords is increasing connections. That means once I use technology, the internet or smartphones or whatever it is about increasing the interconnection. And when I increase the interconnection, it literally links the different parts of the world. Okay, and when it links different parts of the world, then definitely you reduce the need for manpower. It's even a greater link for it. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is globalization, right? Especially for drivers of globalization, this is a typical link, must remember kind of thing. Okay, transport. Okay, blah blah blah. Transport. You talk about how transport, for example, you talk about Changi Airport, all those kind of things. Are just simple examples, right? You must quote a bit like this one. Okay, but the link is when I have transport. Okay, again, it is about moving around the world quickly and facilitate the process through. I think I forgot to put here. It facilitates the process through reliable transport system, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I'll edit this and then give it to you. Okay, so this is a part that you need to do. This is very, very easy. You get this for O level, it's so good. Okay, just one last one. Okay, I'll go through Ahmad Ibrahim, the lastest one. Okay, so this, I think I went through to most of the classes. We talk about this. Again, why is the rise a concern? So concern, right, usually will be negative lah, correct? Cannot be concern positive, right? It's a concern, that's why I'm worried about it. So it has something that you're worried. So two consequences. So consequences here literally means impact. And the impact is, it can be impact towards individual, it can be impacts towards government. Okay, and the answers can be about specifically diabetes and obesity. Okay, and because of that, so this is interesting because what affects an individual can also lead, if you're going to stretch your answers, right, can also lead to how as a result this concern to Singapore as they have to use the finance. So that means what can be an individual problem or an individual impact, and for you to stretch your answers, right, you can even associate the answers together with government impact. Because you don't take care of your health, you become a burden. You become a burden to the government. So that is one way of writing it. Okay, the other one is, I think, we talk about this, we talk about, recycling. Okay, the disposal, the high number of disposal, hard to recycle. So again, it is about landfill. It is a concern to Singapore because the government will need to find other location. So it's quite easy this one. Okay, because I went through this already, so you can just read. Okay, last bits. Just now same thing with Anderson. Anderson talked about transport and technology. So this is about MNCs. Okay, so this one is just interesting because I wanted you to see the answers. So MNCs, please take note. MNCs, how does MNCs leads to, again, how far do you agree? More crucial. It can affect the speed of globalization. How does it lead to spread of globalization, right? So I use an example of Starbucks, okay? Just like your paper was on Starbucks, right? So when you talk about Starbucks, then from the Starbucks example, how do you link, okay? So the very fact that Starbucks operates in many countries, Starbucks actually source their coffee beans from all these countries, globalization, right? MNCs, right? And they deliver to more than this amount of stores in all 65 countries. The very fact, what is the thing, keyword here? Integrated and interconnected. That is why it is important for the spread of globalization. They are able to go to a lot of countries given that their role as an MNC. Okay, so this is another example of how you use the example and the link together really, really well. Okay, because it is a specific example. Right, so take note when you do your revision, read this as well. Okay, I am gonna answer some questions. Okay, wait, let me stop share first. Okay, so one of the questions that your friends ask is, should we describe the topic and strategies or just strategies? I would advise you to just look at strategies, in fact. Okay, so especially when you do source and when you do question 6, right, you have no time. So what you do is straight away you just go into the strategy. Don't even just answer the question, give strategy, give examples, and then chop chop go. Okay. The other one is, I think someone asked, for question 7, when you explain cross-island line, can you say sometimes there are clear answers to the competing? More benefit can. Okay, I think one of the idea here is as you try to balance your argument, just balance it. Okay, sometimes that you realize that, okay, there are some factors that you're able to answer because the case study is as such. Okay, so I think for Sarah, yes, I would say that yes, okay, you are able to answer that. Your answers is actually quite good. Okay, another one is, do we talk about Singapore and can we talk about other questions? The questions never say anything about Singapore. Compassville. Okay, let me go back to Compassville. Let me go back to Compassville. Okay, Compassville, question about Singapore. Okay, very good question. Must it be a case study? This one, right? I think question, oh, sorry, question 7 of Compassville. Oh yeah. Okay, so all examples, in fact, right, I would say everything requires a Singapore case study. So this one, it doesn't say, but if you look very carefully, both the two questions is about Singapore. So most of the time, all of your answers, in fact, SRQ answers, it has to have a Singapore slant. Unlike the source-based question where it can be from anywhere, but for SRQ, it definitely needs a Singapore slant. Your strategies must come from a Singaporean perspective for this individual committee of government. The only time that I would feel, no, even 2017 paper about leadership, I think they were very specific about Singapore case study. So what you can do is you can take a look at all the specimen paper, 2017 all the 2020 paper. Most of it will have a Singapore slant. The only topics that will not have a Singapore slant will definitely be when they ask you about assimilation, which is about the French. So you have to talk about the French a little bit. Healthcare, you have to talk about Swedish healthcare, you have to talk about American healthcare. Globalization, see, even globalization, it came back to about Singapore's impact towards Singapore. So the Singapore aspect is very, very important. Okay. Okay, there's another question. Let's see. Must we talk about consequences for SRQ question 7? You have to write the link. Yes, definitely you must write the link. It is very important that you link back to the question. That means your examples must make sense. Okay, if example is wrong but you link it to, if you use another country's example and you link it to Singapore, a bit hard lah. Because the idea is your example and your link must match. So try your very best to use examples from Singapore case study. Okay, that is very important. Okay, so again, let's clarify. When I say Singapore, it is community, individual, and government. If I say Singaporean, it is individual and community. But you must make sure the community is non-government organization. So I repeat one more time. If you see the word Singapore, it can be individual, it can be community, it can be a government strategy. If it is Singaporean, no government. Okay, no Singapore government, but your community must be very careful. You cannot say community centers because it is a government, it's a government government control, but government initiated, right? So you must make sure that your community is NGO, non-government organization. I mean, your examples must come from there. Can? Okay. So I think this is it. I will record. Okay, I will send the recording to your SS teachers. Make sure you get them to share the latest SRQ. And if there's any other questions, I think you can get them to go back to them and answer the question and ask them questions. Okay, but it'll be very, very good. I would really, really advise you, please go and get your SRQ done and pass it to your teachers. I think it'll be good in these 2 weeks just to get a sensing, because I think you really have no time. Okay. All right, so thank you so much. This is 58 of you for joining in. If there's any other questions, you can always find me along the way. All right, and always ask your SS teacher. Okay, that's all. Bye-bye. Okay.